Alright, welcome back everybody. This is M-Dog. We are here at Tunguska doing a little fishing, and I thought we would do a little bit of Sbirolino fishing today. Really anticipating that this may end up being an important part of fishing at Yama from what we've seen so far. Now things may develop. Obviously, once the community gets their hands on the new river, then you never know what's going to happen. But first, let's take a look at what this type of fishing is. It describes it pretty well here. We're actually doing it with a lure, not the soft lure. The ability enables using the Sbirolino with a classical lure or wobbler. The rig includes a special Sbirolino float and a lure, wobbler, spoon, or spinner. Allows catching cautious fish from a long distance using small lures, which are difficult to cast long distance with an ordinary spinning rod. So it's not dissimilar from UL fishing, although you're able to cast much farther distances with it. Obviously, the soft one, you're going to be using offset hook and a soft lure if you're doing the soft one. We'll see. Once Yama's out, we'll see. But I'm anticipating potentially putting points in this at some point. While I was waiting overnight, I've been sitting here catching eastern breams, which they still seem to be pretty good here, as they often are at a couple spots here on Tunguska. But right now we're going to focus on this. So here's how I've got it set up right now. Earlier I was testing it with braided line and a leader, and that seemed to work good, but I thought we'd try straight fluorocarbon for a little bit. We're using the Evora. We don't have those nice like Troutmaster or Ultima or whatever that we've seen folks using on the test accounts in the Yama previews. But as long as the test range is reasonable for what you're doing, then any casting or spinning rod, or many of them, can be made to work with this type of fishing. We're using the 40 gram, although there's lots of different sizes, and so some of that is, again, just matching up to your test and taking into account how heavy the lure is you're going to be fishing with as well. We'll start with the popper here. One thing to note, it requires either 100% spin fishing or 100% float fishing. So even though I don't have 100% float fishing, only at 93.2, I'm still able to do it because we're at 100% spin fishing. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we have a chance of leveling up float using this technique. So I'll show you the first place that I experimented with this, and some of the other sort of higher level players, I've done this before here because other people have told me about it. This is not a new thing just because Yama's coming out. Folks have been using Sbirolino here. You may or may not have heard about it. It wasn't like, I don't think it was common knowledge that everyone talked about, because it is a little bit higher level thing here because of needing to be 100% spin or float. But you may have heard about it before. But in the past, at least, it's worked pretty good. And you saw how far that cast went. We're able to basically cover the Tunguska River, or a really large part of it, based on how heavy a Sbirolino float you have on there. Oh, there's something else we need to point out as well. We do have the floating type on there. They have floating and sinking. But if you're using a popper like this, obviously you want to be floating. I suppose if you're using a spoon, like let's say you have a little hunter spoon or something on there, you may want to have the sinking one. And I can show you that setup real quick as well. But this popper, just like this popper is kind of working with UL really well. And we'll switch around, try some different poppers out. But and maybe we'll try a couple of spinner baits out as well, which you'll want the floating for those. But this seems to be working really well. And you don't have to cast it as far as I did just now. Sometimes it's actually more active, a little closer, like not quite that far away. But as you can see, you can catch fish using this. One of the reasons why I actually think it's a little risky going with 12.3. Before I was using 17 because, yeah, you may hit some nice pink salmon or whatever, but you could also hit a taimen or a big Arctic char or whatnot. So, but some of these are sinking. They'll have the S on there. And some of these are floating, and they have just the F on there. And then with sinking variety, you also have slow sinking. So you've got sinking and slow sinking, and then you've got floating. And of course, you know, if we're using a spinner bait, I think we would still mostly want to use... Oh, is this a sinking one? This is a sinking one, isn't it? That's interesting. I think we want to be used floating. You know what that probably means is that I might have this set up on a different rod from another... Do I, though? It's been a while since I did Sbirolino. I thought I had one of the heavier floating ones. But I don't know. I'm just not sure where it would be right now if I do. Unless I just had it set up on a random... No, it wouldn't have been on any of that. So anyway, all right, so now we have a floating one. Let's see if this still works just as well. This one's not quite as heavy, but it'll still go pretty far. This should be just as good, though. We're still getting walk the dog. Yeah, so it's just a matter of if you want that float pulling the lure down a little bit or not. And with a popper, of course we don't. You have that extra... Sometimes it seems a little harder to get walk the dog. I'm using sort of a shift reel at top speed technique. You can slow it down and do the more normal, 30 speed or whatever you like to use on walking the dog. This is just kind of the habit I'm in. Trying to get the pattern here. Try to keep that walk the dog up the whole time. That's a little better. And there it is. You can see it coming towards us there. Right at the end. A little Arctic char got on there, I believe. So let's try... let's just try a different color on the original popper. I don't want it to go too far. I don't know how active these other color poppers will be. I think they work okay, but that one just seems to be really active right now. So that did get a pretty quick bite, though. Let's see what this is. This might be a trout. I'm sorry, a salmon. No, it's a little perch. We're not going to cast it as far this time. That's really weird that we were using the sinking style and it still seemed to be working. I guess because we're, reeling so quickly, right? Like, it probably wasn't having time to really float, so we were still able to get walk the dog on it. And we're probably going a little too fast here, but... It's pretty cool. So the whole idea behind this is just being able to fish farther away. Be able to cast these little lures out so much farther. One of the places I've liked doing it before is kind of over here, right where the... Like right over here. And then you're sort of bringing it right, this whole path, right in front of the mouth of the little river. All right, this is the UL popper. Let's see if I can keep it going. Yeah, it needs that little extra... motion. Yeah, we're not getting walk the dog. There we go. I probably ought to keep the popper on that I know is active so that we know the difference between, like, when is it working based on the reeling speed and everything we're using versus is it just not working because the lure we're using. There we go. So we did get a bite. I mean, look how far out it still is. I mean, we basically cast it straight across, but then because of the current, it's amazing how we're grabbing these Arctic chars on it right now. Because of the current, you know, it ends up just being way down there. All right, let's try sort of a normal, we'll see if a 30-30 approach works. See if we can get walk the dog sort of more normally here. So there we go. And this may be more stable. You know, you might have a little bit better bite rate doing it this way because it's not quite as difficult to keep walk the dog up. And of course, you can use this in the little river. The thing is, there's not as much advantage. I mean, you just about might as well just be fishing UL at that point. There's a little timing. You know, if you go up the river, like you don't need to cast as far to have the advantage of using this lure type. That's where I think it's really going to shine at Yama. I mean, you're going to be able to cast so much farther and fish parts of that of the new river that you just can't reach without this technique. Thankfully, there are a lot of there's a lot of variety in the weight sizes. So no matter what the test of your rod and reel are, which, by the way, since this is a casting rod, we do have a test on the reel as well. It has to be at least 15.5. So no matter what test you're working with, there's probably a Sbirolino float that you can get that will complement the test you need that you're going for. So there's some variety, there's some flexibility, and again, it's just a pretty nice technique. Even here at Tunguska, it's been good. But I think especially at Yama, we're going to really see it shine at Yama, in my opinion. Look how fast this bite rate is. This is what I found last time I did this, was you can pretty much, and it's this way with UL at times as also, but you can pretty much, you know, get a bite almost every cast. Let's try, there's a Linux. I mean, everything's going for it. Let's look at the ultralight weeklies, and let's just look and find one of the so poppers. People are using so many poppers. Okay, so Spiker 2005 for the Amul. I was just trying to see maybe a Spiker we could try out. Oh, there we go. No, that's Belaya. Aquila 4 gram 10. We could try that. Aquila 4 gram 10. 4 gram 10, or the Spiker 18 is always good. The 4. All right, let's try that Aquila first. The 4 gram Aquila. The 10. Okay, so this one, we should still have a good test range here, and then we'll just we'll just do straight retrieval, and then pause every once in a while. We might occasionally do speed up, but mostly we're just going to let it come on across the current here. I think it will still work, although recently it feels like the bite rate on those poppers has just been really good. All right, let's go speed up this time and see if that gets the attention of something. And then I like to sort of pause after the speed up and then keep going. And then we'll try the Spiker. See if we can't find a fish. Oh, there we go. See if we can't find a fish or two on spinner baits as well. But yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is just the amount of territory you can cover with this technique is just fantastic. So we want to try a spiker. What was it, the 18, I believe? Let's just see how the 18 looks right here. All right, speed it up a bit. I kind of want to throw this one, but more sort of out on the main river. See if it catches something. This is our little eastern bream spot. There we go. We got a little perch or something, I think, on there. Might be something even smaller than a perch, actually. Yeah, it is a perch. So yeah, but I mean, it still seems like popper is kind of the way to go. Okay, so if you wanted, oh wait, hold on, let's go back to, I mean, just any kind of, I just wanted to see this right in front of us here. So it's a floating Sbirolino, and then the spinnerbait just kind of floats behind or sinks behind it, right? However long the little leash is on the connector between the Sbirolino and the lure. It's very short. Perhaps that would be longer if you had a leader on there. Let's look at it real quick. All right, so that's what it looks like with no leader. Does it change things when you put a leader? Yeah. So it looks like it replaces that little connector. And now we have a little longer leash. If you want that lure trailing farther behind, a longer leader does that for you, I guess. That current just makes it pretty active, even just sitting there. It's pretty nice. Okay, so let's get a good look at this. Nice long little leader. Take the leader off, and then we just have the default connector, I guess, between the two. That's kind of interesting. Huh. And then, of course, if you want to do sinking, we could try sinking here with a maybe a small hunter or something. I have no idea. Like, I have not done a lot of experimenting with this. I think, I could be wrong on this, I think maybe people go for the dragon char using this technique some. But I haven't done that. I mean, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that some folks maybe do that. But once it gets closer, we'll take a look at it. So this Sbirolino should be sinking to the ground, and then the spoon will be following it down at the bottom. Look how far away it still is. In the current, I'm not sure if this is necessarily the best way to approach in the current, but up in the lake, again, just to be able to cast farther and use some of the smaller lures. Some folks might be using Sbirolino up there. So we got stop and go. I don't think I've seen stop and go in a couple of years maybe. I forgot stop and go was even a thing in this game. I think I've got an old video on Corey, if I remember correctly, of showing how to get jig step versus stop and go. I think it's basically like the length of the pause, maybe. All right, so let's look at this right out in front of us here. All right, yeah, so you can see the Sbirolino is sinking. And you can have a regular sinking one or a slow sinking one to change how quickly that's happening. I personally, at least here, have had so much more success with the floating and the little spinner baits or the poppers. But yeah, there's lots of options, and I think there will be a lot to play around with at Yama. If there was going to be something that, based on what we've seen so far, something that might be like that I might look forward to is like figuring some of that stuff out. I just like feeder fishing, bottom fishing so much that I worry about how interested I'll be for long periods of time. I guess it just depends. There is a lot of new species. If we can figure out something, even if it's like going for small fish on the bottom rides on the other two lines, or I really don't know, but hopefully we can figure out some ways to make it particularly fun. But leveling up to be able to use Sbirolino, I mean, I guess if it's going to be a 32 level lake, which, because, I haven't, a lot of the information I'm hearing is basically secondhand, right? People who can understand the languages that are being spoken during these preview streams. We still haven't had the English speaking preview stream. DJ Pooney is doing that tomorrow. So some of the information I have, other than the stuff you could just visually see, is based on people who I think are translating correctly what's been said, but you don't know for sure. Hopefully we'll find out more tomorrow, and then I think, I'm hoping, perhaps this next week we'll all be able to get in there and start experimenting at Yama. You need that little bit of slack to build up to keep walk the dog going. Yeah, we stopped again. It may be that it's the angle as well. I just need to be more angled out like this. There we go. There we go. That's a nice grayling. All right, so let's do a couple casts going back to the leader. So let's see if we can maybe get like a 12.3 leader. I don't know that we necessarily need the 60 centimeter. Let's just go 11.6 with the 20. So before we were using straight fluorocarbon line. But earlier today when I was testing this, I was doing just as well, I think, as using a leader and braided line. So there we go. Is that a linnet? Yeah. Sharp snouted. I like it. I mean, this is basically what we're going to be doing at Yama, right? Hopefully figuring some things out, but pretty much this is going to be the type of stuff we're doing. Just casting a little farther. Curious if you know, I'm sure there's people out there that have done a similar amount. Oh, I think we're just snagged here, aren't we? A similar amount of, or have tested Sbirolino and done a lot of UL fishing. There's folks that just do it a lot more than I do. I'm just curious if the bite rate ends up feeling about the same, or if in these spots UL still outperforms it. I mean, I am running a larger leader right now than I would on UL, obviously. So maybe for a fairer comparison, we should back it down. And I'm not as worried. I mean, you can still hook into some pretty scary Arctic char and taimen even in the little river, but it's just a lot less common than the big river. So using it up here, we probably could go smaller leader. It's amazing. I mean, even when you don't realize how far you're casting, like 40% cast, you feel like it takes forever to reel in a fish because it's still out there so far. So, so yeah, like if we went to a more normal, like an 8.2, a little quicker bite maybe. All right, so the 4F006. Let's see if some of these other colors will also work here. Same size popper, but different color. Or do these Tunguska fish just really like that brown popper? Ah, this one caught a fish. I think that's also a linnet, isn't it? Yeah. Then we also have the 7. Nice. We didn't cast that one quite as far either. That's a grayling. That looks like an eastern grayling. I'm sorry, Arctic grayling. Nice. 1 kilo too. That's a nice fish. Oh, I'm shift reeling on accident. I was like, wait. How could we possibly have it in so far? I'm so used to doing the 50 speed shift reel. But on this, it seems like we've had a little better success slowing it down some. And just trying to keep that walk the dog going as much as possible. We also have the 05. And then one more time, the 06. So, Sbirolino works really well here. I have a feeling it's going to be one of the key approaches to Yama. I'm not saying the only approach, but one of the key approaches. There's a nice linnet. So, if you're close to either 100% on bottom or float, might be worth finishing that. Sorry, not bottom. If you're close on either spin or float, it might be worth leveling that up. And then I'm probably not going to do it before Yama actually releases and we have a chance to start trying stuff out. But might be worth thinking about points in it too. I don't know. We'll see. Depends on how much you really want to embrace Yama. All indicators seem to point to not having fly fishing at release, but perhaps down the line a bit, a few months from now or whatever. So at least until fly fishing hits, if it hits, yeah, it just may be more about the Sbirolino. All right, I think this is basically where we've been fishing for eastern bream. Go ahead and get set up for that. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else worth mentioning about the Sbirolino. We're 20 clip here, by the way, on pea porridge with some sort of ground bait for eastern bream. But they've been really good in this spot. But we did okay experimenting. Need to get dialed in a little bit. And like I said, you can kind of do this anywhere, even out here on the main river, although we are using an awfully small leader to be doing it on the main river. But thankfully we didn't embarrass ourselves here. Yeah, there's a little perch. Sometimes off of the dock over here, though, you can get really nice brown trout and stuff like that using Sbirolino. I'm not sure if they're really like as active today, but it's definitely something you can do. Oh, we get a little bonus eastern bream here. It's actually a reasonable size one too. So this will be our last fish or two here, and then we'll wrap it up. But yeah, let me know if you have experiences using Sbirolino, or is it something you're going to try to unlock before Yama comes out, or as it's coming out. The main advantage, like I said before, is, well, you don't have to use ultralight, so you can catch a little bit bigger fish, even using the smaller lures. But the main thing is just the casting distance. To be able to cast it so far with all that weight in the Sbirolino, you can really fish areas that without that technique you can't get to. So it is very cool, very nice. And it's one of the things I do look forward to trying out a little bit at Yama once it does release. That's going to be a nice Eastern. It's kind of funny that we actually caught this at the end of this video. It's a hefty one though. But I'm telling you, this spot's been really nice. Really nice for a while now. Like I said, I really like to fish on feeder rods. So me and Yama River are going to have to sort of get used to each other, I guess. But anyway, as always, thanks for the support. Thanks for being here. As the dust is settling, you know, let me know what you're thinking about Yama River and different ways we're going to have to approach it for now, at least. Tight lines, everybody. I will see you next time. Peace out.